Sara here with another episode of You're Fucking Welcome. I feel like I should call myself Zen Sara. I feel like I'm in a very different state of mind and place and energy than I normally am, thanks to a trip that I just took over the past couple days to Miraval in Austin, which is a resort and spa and really just all about mindfulness and presence and wellness, essentially. I did everything from floating meditation classes to getting a psychic reading. They don't allow phones or devices on the premises. And it was just 3 days that I needed so badly to just reset and to just take some time to be with myself and, again, get away from all of the business stuff and the technology. And I'm feeling more refreshed than I could possibly explain to you. It was definitely too short. I definitely am looking forward to going back, not only for myself, but I'm in the process of putting together an open retreat like back there at the end of July, because I feel like it's an experience that so many entrepreneurs need just to, again, get out of, I don't know, the day to day, right? To get off the hamster wheel and take that moment to reset. Because as I've preached and as I will continue preaching to you, more work is not necessarily better work, more centered, more grounded work, and you being more centered and grounded just in your body and in yourself. It's really, in my experience, in my opinion, always going to breed the best results in all ways. And so, I just want to remind you of that. B, I want you to know that a retreat is on its way. And again, I'm getting the details together for that. But as I thought about what I wanted to talk to you about today, I've got a couple other episodes recorded and planned, but I just felt like I wanted to talk to you about something either like specific to the trip or just, again, like in alignment with this reset, if you will. And that's really about how to nurture yourself, which, if you're like me, probably sounds like a really boring topic or something that you might roll your eyes at. But I want to preface this by saying that I don't think this is a surprise, especially if you know me, but I am definitely more of a thinker, right? I'm somebody who is definitely in my head most of the time. I'm somebody who is thinking in practicality, like I'm thinking in solutions, I'm thinking in logic, and my brain never stops, right? And it's really funny, and this is going to be a whole other thing, but my coach, Carrie, has been trying to get me to take the Enneagram for a really long time, and I've resisted for a really long time, and I finally did it. And I believe that I'm a 6 wing 5, and I feel like I'm going to dive deeper into that because it's only been a few days, and which is why I didn't want to talk about it with you too much here, because I feel like I just learned this concept 5 seconds ago and I don't want to rush into sharing it with you before I feel ready. But in reading so much about my type and reading about, again, just the traits, and it all making so much sense to me, more sense than probably anything ever has before. It just reaffirmed to me that I knew I was more of a thinking type. I know that I'm somebody who thinks in, logic, like I said, and practicalities, but reading it, right? Reading that, again, being able to put it in a box, which is very much of my type, being able to see that made things, I don't want to say more clear, because I feel like I was clear on a lot of these traits anyway, but it allowed me to stop fighting them, and it allowed me to kind of step into this place of acceptance. And so, again, I'll talk to you more about that in the future. But my point ultimately is that me being kind to myself, right? Or me relaxing, me giving myself compassion, me nurturing myself is absolutely positively not my instinctual go-to. It is not my natural or normal or organic way of being. My way of being is typically to fight or push harder or to do more of something to make it work, right? I feel like I'd like to believe that I'm not a very controlling person, although I think that probably could be argued, but I feel like in order to get something, I like, again, knowing the steps, right? I like knowing how to control an outcome. Type 6s are very much seekers of comfort and certainty and security. And that's very much me, right? I like to do the things that I know have worked for me in the past, or again, create this sense of security. And so, again, my point in that is that I'm somebody who, this always sounds a little bit martyry, and I don't want it to sound like that, but I feel like I'm typically somebody who is much more inclined to beat myself up or make myself wrong for something, or again, like I said, try harder versus the opposite. And so I had a conversation with my coach, Carrie, months ago, and something came up for me here that we kind of worked through. And it's what I wanted to share with you today, because I think it's such a good system, if you will, for figuring out what to do next around something, whether that's in your day or in the grand scheme of your business, but in a way that's actually aligned and actually coming from the energy you want it to come from. Because, I know I say this over and over again, but I think it's so important that you understand when it comes to so much of this business stuff and life stuff, that the decision that you're making is not normally the most important part. The most important part is who you're being when you're making that decision. The most important part is the energy that the decision is coming from, right? And so an example of this, right, is, let's say if I were to record a 10-minute podcast episode today, right? And I wanted to put it out there. A 10-minute podcast episode, some people might hate them, some people might love them. Neither answer is right or wrong, like doing it versus not doing it. It's not, a 10-minute episode is not right, a 10-minute episode is not wrong. The only thing that I have to look at is, what energy is this decision coming from, and who am I being in this decision? Because am I putting out a 10-minute episode because, oh God, this person does, and that's what I should do, or because somebody said that my episodes are too long, and so I'm forcing myself to pull it back, and I'm being essentially the uncertain version of myself in that moment? Or am I putting out a 10-minute episode because I really fucking want to say this thing in 10 minutes and I don't believe it warrants a really long episode? And I feel good about what I'm doing and I'm certain about that decision, and that's all there is to it, right? So again, it's never about the decision itself. It's about who you're being and the energy from which the decision is coming. And so again, I've known that and I've understood that for a while, although I would be lying to say that I always practice it, right? I certainly forget from time to time, but I've understood that for a while. But so to go back to Carrie and I having this conversation, I said something along the lines of, I was doing something, I don't remember what it was because it was like quite a few months ago at this point. And I said something like, oh, well, I was mothering myself, the way that I said it. And she was like, well, were you mothering yourself? Like basically kind of like pushing yourself to do something or telling yourself you should do something. And she's like, well, were you mothering yourself or were you like berating yourself? Because mothering yourself from a loving, nurturing energy and mothering yourself from a you should do this energy are two very different things. And again, I'm paraphrasing here the way that she said it, of course, but it was this light bulb moment for me. Like, when I tell you that I feel like this lesson was worth $50 million for me, like it truly was. Because in that moment, it allowed me to see that I am typically in all things, whether it's business, whether it's like food stuff, like exercising, I am typically not even typically, I am basically always, like it would be a very, very, very 0.1% rare exception that I'm not in one of these three modes. I am normally in one of three modes. I am either mothering myself, right, from a cold, harsh, you should do this, you have to fix this place, right, where it's again, like me pushing myself to do something because I feel like I have to, right? The second mode which is the newest mode for me, is that what would I actually do right now if I was nurturing myself, right? So like that second mode is doing things because it's the loving thing to do for myself. The third mode, which is the mode that I have struggled with many times in my life and business, and again, all of it, is when I say fuck it all and I kind of, everything goes out the window and I kind of go into this like rebellious mode and like this wild abandon mode, right? And so it's like, if we were to look at it as like, I guess like red, yellow, green, or like these three different modes, I'm at different speeds and I'm doing things with different energy and for different reasons. And something about being able to visualize it in boxes, if you will, or being able to be like, oh, this is a 1, 2, or 3. This is the category this is falling under in this moment. Asking myself the question of where I am at in any given moment when I'm doing something gives me such a clear perspective in like, am I being who I want to be right now? So a couple examples of this, right? Because I think a lot of times, and I know that I have this conversation with clients and other people that I speak to, is like this whole self-care thing, right? Obviously self-care is such a big topic, but I hear people talk about it, and you hear the people who are preaching you should wake up at 5 a.m. And then you're hearing the people preach about how like easy life and business should be, and, you know, watch your Netflix, this, that, the other thing. And I think we're getting so many mixed messages, right? From everybody from who we're following online to the commercials on TV to our friends and family. There's so many different mixed messages that I think it can be really hard to A, pick the right one, and then B, trust ourselves to make the right one, right? And so if we're talking about, let's say, a self-care day, right? Like, let's just say you're relaxing, you're not working, however we want to say that. You watching Netflix, for example, right? If you don't watch Netflix, you really want to watch this show, but you are telling yourself you're lazy, you're this, you're that. If you watch it, if you sit down and watch it, that's you again, like mothering yourself and berating yourself in this not so kind, not so positive, not so nurturing way, right? And to me, that's a way that we don't want to treat ourselves. We don't want to go through our lives essentially making ourselves do something because we think we should, right? Or shouldn't do it. The second mode, you nurturing yourself or loving yourself, right, is maybe watching a show, maybe watching 2 shows, but then getting on with your life. Because I think that we can all agree that there's nothing wrong with watching TV. There's nothing wrong with Netflix, right? Like there's nothing wrong with zoning out in front of a TV, whatever. But there is a line where it becomes something that you're not doing to nurture yourself. You're not doing it to rest. You're doing it in excess, right? Which would be in the third mode. And you're kind of trying to escape something, or you're trying to, again, kind of maybe numb out in some sort of way, right? So again, like let's look at this in a different example. If we were looking at this with food, there's nothing wrong with having the cookie, right? If you genuinely desire a cookie and you feel as though you're loving yourself, nurturing yourself by giving yourself this cookie, you're giving yourself what you want, right? That's again, that second mode. You're nurturing yourself, you're loving yourself, and that's the goal. You want to do things because it's again, this positive type of energy. You want to do things because you are being good to yourself. Whereas if we look to the left or the right, that first mode, refusing to eat the cookie because you think the cookie is bad and wrong, that A, makes you miserable, right? You deny yourself. You probably wind up putting yourself in a position where you're going to eat 50 cookies, right? And so it brings us to the third mode where, again, you kind of go into wild abandon mode and you feel as though you've been so restricted, you've been so controlled that you wind up going completely out of control and eat 45 cookies, right? So I hope you're hearing me here where it becomes this thing where if you are sitting there trying to decide, I already recorded a podcast episode today. Should I do another episode? Well, are you loving yourself in this moment, right? Is you recording another podcast episode right now, is that the nurturing and loving thing to do for yourself? Or is it a situation where you're doing it from this place of force or should, right? Or are you not doing podcast episodes at all, right? Like, again, obviously there's all these different examples and they fall into the categories in different ways. But again, I hope you hear my point here that I see so many people struggle to make decisions and struggle to decide what to do in their life and in their business. Again, because of all of those mixed messages, because of weighing out all the pros and cons, because of the conditioning in terms of what you believe you should do or you're supposed to do, or what somebody's going to think about you if you do or don't do this. And I want you to, and again, like for me personally, it was such a tangible way for me to do this for myself, which is why I share it with you, is that I can put it through the filter, if you will, of what column does this fall into right now? Am I, again, forcing? Am I pushing myself here in an unkind way? Am I loving myself? Or am I in rebellion mode where I'm saying fuck it all and, again, throwing kind of the rules out the window to in a way that doesn't actually help me, right? Because again, the goal for me always is that I want to be in this place of nurturing myself, which is why I want to talk about this today, because coming off of a trip where I literally sat here, and it was so funny because I was sitting here with such anxiety about to book the trip, and I had been thinking about going here for a really long time. And it kind of came together last minute. But I'm sitting there being like, should I spend the money on this? And the money is a non-issue. Should I, is it wrong to put my dog in doggy daycare for a couple nights? Is it wrong to do this when I should or could be working? Like, I had such fear and anxiety about, is this the right decision? And when I say I had a lot of fear and anxiety, I knew in the moment it wasn't real. It was just watching myself, like, experiencing the experiences and the feelings that I had had so many times before. And it was like my natural go-to, and like having to sit there and witness, like, there's literally no reason for you to not do this right now. You're just so used to not giving yourself this or not nurturing yourself in this way that it feels uncomfortable. And so again, coming off of a trip like that, where I really took just such good care of myself, right? I allowed that for myself. I allowed myself to, again, lay out in the pool and, just do nothing for a couple days there other than, again, relax. It was such a nourishing experience and such a nurturing experience for me that as I, get back to work, I feel so much more lit up and so much more inspired to do good work because it's not coming from that first mode. I gave myself that opportunity to, again, be in that second mode. And so all of that to say, I just want that for you as well. And so to sum it up, I just want you to pay such massive attention to where your energy is coming from with everything, but specifically when you're deciding what to do next and, what actions and steps to take in your life and in your business, and paying attention to who you're being and really the reasoning for that decision. And again, checking in with yourself if it's actually the loving thing to do, because it might sound a little bit woo-woo or fluffy, and that's fine. But truly, when you are doing things from this place of loving yourself and being kind to yourself, it shows up positively in almost every single way, including in your finances, especially because I think sometimes so many of us are so used to being in control that the idea of going out of control feels so scary. But the cool part about business, specifically for me, is like, I don't fear that, like, I would have a 3-day vacation and then all of a sudden stop working. Like, no, of course not. Like, I know myself better than that. Like, I'm going to give myself that time, and then I'm going to come back and get back at it and, like, be better than ever. And I want you to remember that, because I think so many people are so often afraid to, fuck up their momentum or to drop the ball, if you will. And I want you to just, like we talked about in the last episode as well, but I just want you in this place where you really do deeply trust yourself to take care of yourself and do things from a loving perspective and loving energy, and trust that when you do that, right, it actually all in all requires less work. It winds up pushing you into doing better work, even if it's less work. And that work winds up producing such better results for you. You wind up being happier, and you see that the momentum that you're so afraid to drop or you're so afraid to screw up it can't be screwed up that easily. And the day or the week or the hour that you took to love yourself was nothing in comparison to what it actually winds up creating for you. And again, I feel like it's one of the greatest lessons I've learned over the past year or so. And it's, again, something that I keep learning on deeper levels. And so I wanted to share with you because I just feel like it's so deeply important and so deeply misunderstood in this entrepreneurial space. And if you can start to love yourself more and nurture yourself more as a business owner, it means the world to me that you can follow that advice, but also I just know that it's going to benefit you so, so, so greatly. And please trust me that that was a really hard thing for me to wrap my brain around as well, but it's done such a world of good for me. And I know that it can do that for you too. And so I hope you found this helpful. Please share, please subscribe, please rate and review, all of those kind of things. I appreciate it just so, so much. It helps so much. And again, like I said from the very beginning, what I want ultimately is more ears, hearing this stuff that I think is really important. And so I ask for your help in doing that. Okay, I'll talk to you in the next episode. Bye.